Hi guys, welcome back to Tulle Fashion. So I made this bridal robe a while ago for my client, but I couldn't get any video tutorial of it. So I'm recreating it now for this tutorial. So yeah, let's get right into it. The preferred material to use for this robe is bridal satin. Here I'm using this mirror face satin mostly because this is all I have at home. So I'm just going to work with this. And you need about 2-3 yards. It depends on the size of your client. So if your client is a size 6 or a size 8, you could use 2 yards. And if your client is like from a size 10 upwards, you should be looking at 2.5 yards, 3 yards. So what I did was to fold the fabric in 4 so that I could cut the back and the front together without having to cut out the shoulder. So this area over here would remain folded. So you go ahead to take your shoulder measurement, divide it by 2 and add 1/2 inch for seam allowance, and then mark that out. Then I'll go ahead to mark out the armhole length from the point of the shoulder. I'm taking 9 inches here instead of the normal 7-8 inches because normally this robe is supposed to be bigger than your actual size. Next, I'm going to take whatever I measured the bust measurement to be and add 15 inches to it before going ahead to divide whatever I get by 4 and also adding 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're adding 15 inches before dividing so that we could increase the size of the robe so it could fit properly. I went ahead to join the armhole with my French curve, and I also measured the length and added my seam allowance. Because the fabric is very short, I was managing it. I could only use the length that I had there. And I also connected the bust to the bottom of the fabric. Now I'll go ahead with the neckline, and first I'll measure out the neckline for the back before cutting it, opening it up to take the measurement for the front. So for the back, the width is 3 inches and the depth is 2 cm. I'll just go ahead to notch out the middle so when I open it up to cut out the front, I won't be confused. So I've gone ahead to separate the front from the back so I can cut out the neckline for the front. The neckline for the front is going to be a deep V neckline and it's going to fall to about the under bust or the waist area. I'm making this to be about 13 inches. So while cutting out the V neckline, I also cut open the center front. So now I'll just go ahead to measure this opening that I've made so that I can cut out the collar. And unfold, it is 34 inches, that is 68 inches when I open it up. So I need 68 inches length for the collar. And for the width of the collar, you can make it big, you can make it small. Personally, I prefer using about 6 inches. So by the time I fold that, I'll have 3 inches, and by the time I'm done sewing, I would have 2.5 inches. So I'm just measuring how much I need, which I measured previously to be 68 inches as the collar of the robe. So I need about 68 inches in length for this. So I'll just go ahead to cut out the belt also, and the belt is 5 inches wide. So by the time I fold and I'm done sewing, it should be about 2 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead to measure the armhole on the robe so I can use that to cut out the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I'm measuring the length and I'm adding 1/2 inch for seam allowance, and then I'm going to measure out the armhole on here. And I'm going to go down to measure the width, and for the width I'm taking 13 inches so it could be wide enough. Now we can go ahead to make the ruffles for the sleeve. So for the ruffles, this is how we're going to cut it out. They're going to be 3 widths. That is, the smallest is going to be 2.5 inches, and then we have 3.5 inches, and then we have 5 inches, and I'm going to layer them like that, and then sew a line across and gather it to form the ruffles. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut this net fabric in 3 different sizes, and I'm also going to make them long enough to make the ruffles or the gathers. So I'm just going to set this aside so we can go ahead to start sewing. So the first thing I did was to fold this collar piece into 2 and iron it flat. So we cut out 6 inches, so now that it's folded we have 3 inches, so I can join this to the robe. But before joining to the robe, because the length isn't enough, I'm going to join 2 of the collar pieces together before going ahead to join it to the robe. Now I've joined them together to make it longer. I'll just go ahead to sew the 2 sides together flat so that it can be easier to join this to the rest of the robe. So this is what I have now. Now I can go ahead to join this collar piece to the robe, but you want to make sure this joining that we made on the collar is not on any other side aside the center back. You want it to be at the center back so it can look neat. So you will make sure that when you are sewing, that joining is at the center back, and then you can go ahead to join the collar to the rest of the robe. So this is what I have after joining, and you also want to make sure that you iron as you sew so your results can be neat. Now I'll go ahead with the ruffles on the sleeve, and you remember we cut 3 different sizes for the ruffles. You can increase or reduce them according to how you want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer this from the largest to the smallest, and then I'm going to just run a line across on my lowest tension so I can gather it. If you have this gathering stitch, it will be better for you, but I'm using this manual sewing machine, so I'll have to run a line and then gather it when I'm done sewing. So you can see that if you run out of net fabric for any one of the pieces, you can just go ahead to add to it and continue sewing. So now that I'm done running a straight line on my lowest tension, I'll just go ahead to take 1 thread from the edge there and then drag it together. And then while it's gathering, you can already see the ruffles starting to form. So this is what I have after gathering, and it's a bit scattered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to arrange it before sewing it onto the sleeve. So to arrange it, I'm just going to go ahead to open it, and it's going to reveal the line that I stitched in the middle. And you're going to make as many of these as you need. Then I'm going to go ahead to place it on the sleeve and sew it onto the edge of the sleeve. And I'll be sewing only 2 of these to the sleeve. If you want to add more to it, you can add more, but I'll be using just 2 of these. So this is the second piece I'll be sewing onto the sleeve, and I'm just making sure that I lift the first piece I've already sewn so I don't make a mistake, and I'm making sure that I'm stitching only the second piece to the sleeve, and I'm just being careful. So this is what I have now, and I also went ahead to do the same thing for the second sleeve, so I can go ahead to attach this to the robe now. After attaching the sleeve to the robe, I'll just go ahead to sew the edges of the sleeve and the robe with 1/2 inch, because we took 1/2 inch seam allowance when we were cutting it out. So this is what I have now. Now I can go ahead to fold the bottom with the seam allowance that we took, and also I'll go ahead to make the belt. So we've come to the end of this video tutorial. Thank you so much for sticking till the end. If this video was helpful in any way, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video so it can get recommended to others, and also make sure to share to someone who might need this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section, and I'm going to see you in my next video.